Let's cue the music and start that word chat.
Hey everybody, welcome to that word chat. So great to see you all. Excited about today's show, as I always am, but it's always good to have an old friend on the show. And Daniel Heuman, I've known for a few years from the conference scene and the professional editing scene, and also he's been on the show before. So he's coming back to talk to us about AI. So Daniel is the original developer of PerfectIt, the CEO of Intelligent Editing. And those of you who edit, and maybe many of you who just use writing in your work, are familiar with PerfectIt, which is a tool that helps check documents for common errors and style issues and things like that. Today we're going to talk about AI, though, a little bit different. And Daniel, I'll start off by saying that we haven't been entirely forthcoming about some details of this discussion, but there is a product announcement that we're going to be talking about today, right?
I mean, come on, what possible better medium is there to make a big announcement than that word chat? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us what you've got the stage.
I'm
sorry. Yeah.
With a build up like that, I wasn't sure if I should be mentioning anything or whether we were saving it for 15 to 20 minutes in.
Oh, that's maybe a good idea. Or we could wait for all the late people to come in the room. But no, we're definitely going to talk about whiskey and tea and coffee and swing dancing and all that stuff. But no, this is really interesting. You told me about this at the beginning of summer. Working on this idea, this concept for utilizing AI to help with writing, not necessarily with editing, but
So the one hint that people might have been able to pick up that we were making an announcement today is that it talks about AI. And as far as anyone knows, what do we have anything to do with AI? Like PerfectIt, people refer to PerfectIt as an AI, and Mark, you know it's not. But I'm sure people on the call will think, well, yeah, of course, PerfectIt's AI. He's just come on the show to plug PerfectIt or talk about the things that people already know about. And PerfectIt is not an AI. In many ways, with PerfectIt, what we have is, I've referred to it at times as stupid software, because it doesn't try to know what's right. The value in PerfectIt is it finds these things that are really difficult, these tough judgment calls, and it shows them to an editor and says, well, you decide. Software isn't good at this. AI isn't good at this. This needs human attention. And that's always been the philosophy with PerfectIt. But we do have an announcement today. So we're going to ask everyone to keep this one a little bit quiet still, because the software is not ready. But we are about to introduce an AI product. And the product is called Draftsmith, and it's a writing refiner. So primarily not intended for editors. But there is kind of a little, well, I could be thrown off this show to begin with. With the next sentence, I may be kicked out of this Zoom call and thrown off the show. But there is a little bit of overlap between writing and editing. So even though it's not a tool,
well, we have no problem with that. That's absolutely true.
Fair enough. Well, if it was a show primarily for writers, then I'd be kicked off. Some people have an issue with it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it has this element of overlap. So we found that it seems to be useful for some editors in some situations.
So I'm sorry, what was the name of it?
So the
That we're
name
not
of it
supposed to
is
share?
Draftsmith, and I'm keeping Draftsmith as
Draftsmith,
in
okay.
wordsmith or blacksmith, but with
Right.
drafts. But we're keeping that. We're asking people to keep that just a little bit quiet. That, you know,
Right.
fine to share in this sort of space, but please don't go announcing all over the internet that we have a new product and its name is Draftsmith, because then people will start Googling it. And if they start Googling it, they're going to find a website that is not at all ready for public consumption. No beta trial has begun yet. So it's kind of for this audience, happy to sort of discuss it here in the hopes that not too many people will discover it.
Great, and perhaps get some feedback on what people would like to see, people who deal in that world.
That would be great if we can cover some of that today. We'd love to get things in the chat when we get into talking about what we've done. Would love to get suggestions because it's not finished. So that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So if you have suggestions or comments or questions for Daniel, especially questions, put them in the chat. Heather, our producer, had a last minute conflict, and so she's not here. But Sarani is a genius at wrangling the chat room to make sure everything is done correctly. So she'll be filtering your questions. What is the timeline then? You say it sounds pretty early in the process still.
It's not that early in the process. So
okay.
We had this idea, I guess, in March or April, somewhere there, and have been working on it since. It's gone through a few stages as we tried to figure out exactly, you know, who this was for and what kind of situations. And in some ways, we're still figuring that out. The talk I gave at CIEP last weekend was called AI, What Is It Good For? And it was to the tune of the Edwin Starr number, you know, with a double chorus of absolutely nothing. So we are still figuring it out, and we presented it there as look, this is a tool for writers.
Was there singing involved?
There may have been dancing involved. I promise there was no singing.
All right.
That would be even worse.
Yeah.
The dancing was, to be honest, quite bad enough. Certainly cringe.
Well, I know. So wait. So I you know, let's all right. Forget about AI for a minute. There was dancing. You're a swing dancer. I mean, you live in that world. You enjoy dancing. Did you do a little performance?
If it had been swing dancing, honestly, I think I could have pulled it off, Mark. But no, this was pure ritual humiliation. If you get to work with wonderful people, occasionally they do things that you just have to go through. And in this case, if I wanted this talk, and I liked that topic, not just because it's fun and we got to play the Edwin Starr song, but I liked the topic, AI, what is it good for? Because it genuinely gives us a good framework for analyzing it. And the framework is absolutely nothing with 2 hyphens in absolutely. Because genuinely we could look through and say, like, if AI is going to be good for editors in any product, it's going to be this one. So Draftsmith is really integrated into Word. It makes that absolutely seamless, and it picks editing tasks that might come up, or the more writing tasks. But as we say, there's overlap. And so by making this completely seamless in Word, if AI is going to be good somewhere, it would be for editors, it would be in this sort of approach. And so we could go through and think about different elements of the software. And at each point we sort of applied, what is this good for? Absolutely nothing. Or are there some editors in the room who think it's useful in certain ways? And if so, what are those ways? And people chimed in much more often than I thought. So it was really interesting to see how good a framework Edwin Starr provides us with that song. And because I wanted it so badly, what I had to go through and the team forced on me was dancing at the beginning of it. And yes, I'm a swing dancer. I'm not a soul dancer. And there's possibly nothing more cringeworthy than a CEO dancing on any stage, never mind a white CEO dancing to a soul tune wearing khakis at 9:15 in the morning. So it was not a pretty sight. There was one rule, which is no video, and it's a one-off that we will not be repeating again.
Yeah. All right. So we won't see you dance, but so this isn't the first announcement. You know, you did have this first American announcement, I guess. This is the Chartered Institute for Editors and Editing and Proofreading.
And that was for people at the conference only. So this is the first public announcement.
Right. And also it was in Scotland. It wasn't even in England. It was
yeah, it doesn't count.
In Glasgow. Yeah. Sorry to any of our Scottish viewers. But you're also going to talk about it next week at the ACES conference, the ACES virtual conference. Tell me what the reaction was for the CEIP crowd. You said there was a lot of talk, a lot of feedback.
It was an incredible reaction. I couldn't really believe it, because the journey on this was that, we initially thought, well, I think this is going to be a good app for editors, and very quickly we realized, no, it's just not how editing works. And anyone who has asked ChatGPT to do editing for them will see this. It's not a good editor. It doesn't understand what the author's voice really is. It can imitate an author. It can do those things. You tell it to write like Shakespeare. You tell it to write like Tolkien. It can imitate what we feel is the style, but it doesn't understand the author's voice, the author's intent, and it's really disrespectful to an author. So when if you tell this program to work like a copy editor, it's not good. And very quickly realizing it can't use AI for editors in that way. And so it became an app for writing, or rather for writing refinement. There's plenty of apps out there for delivering a first draft, but there's not a lot for what happens after a first draft, because that's a kind of more thoughtful process that AI cannot do for you. And our core philosophy fits in, which is, can we help people make decisions faster? Can we help people make decisions better? So we presented it in that light of, here's a writing refinement app, and it's within the framework of the use for you is probably absolutely nothing. And when we presented it like that, the answer we got was completely different, which is that, oh no, we really like that for this situation and for that situation. And the pricing, whereas PerfectIt we sell like it's annual only, the pricing here is you can purchase for a month. So it was, yes, you have a difficult editing project that involves working with someone where you have to do much more substantive, much more extensive edits. Then suddenly this thing's really useful, because there is that overlap between writing and editing. So the reaction when we didn't set expectations too high and we let people say, well, is this useful to you? The reaction was really tremendously positive and really encouraging.
All right. So what brought you into this idea of, did you start out looking for an editing solution to like go with PerfectIt?
I think I went through the journey that probably everyone on this call went through. I shouldn't try to speak for everyone else, but I do think it's a pretty typical journey. So the first thing I did when ChatGPT came out is I ignored it completely, because what do I care? Like, people have been talking about AI in editing for so long. And it's significant. If you think back to Microsoft Word's improvements in 2010, when they really started to improve the spell checker, it started to get a lot better. And now it's improved enormously over the last 13 years. So AI in editing, oh, look at that. Already I've upset the editors.
It has improved, but yeah.
It's relative.
Relative to where it was, yes.
I would love to do a survey of how many editors turned off spelling and grammar check completely in 2007 versus the latest version of Word. I don't hear so many people say, well, I don't even use that.
Right. Well, and I use it, and I've always used it, because why would I not want something giving me a tip? But it's, obviously you just have to take it with a grain of salt. Like absolutely. PerfectIt, and I assume like Draftsmith.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The first given on any software tool, whether it's AI or not, is just, no, you have to, it's going to come up with false positives. It's going to say the wrong thing. It's a tool to help. But these AI tools in editing go back a long way. And even that's not just automation tools. It's that version in 2010, that was Microsoft bringing AI into it. Grammarly is 2009. So AI in editing goes back a long way. ChatGPT comes out. Yes, all the software people that I follow are, oh, wow, look at this thing. But I paid no attention. I was like, yeah, it's not going to be that different. It's not going to do anything. It took me months to try it. And then when I eventually tried it, that's when I think I had the other reaction that a lot of people have, which is, oh my God, the world is ending. This is just, our audience will disappear. This is going to take over everything, looking to the future.
Fire the writers, fire the editors, yeah.
They won't exist, and that's our audience. So I just thought it was absolute world coming to an end. and it's a thought about just like you predict into the future and just think, well, it's going to take over this and take over that. And I feel like everyone goes through that journey, but there is one more step on the journey, which is, oh, hang on, it's not that good. Hang on, it's got all these flaws. These flaws are new and different and unfamiliar to what we imagined a year ago. It can do things most of us couldn't have imagined a year ago, and yet it makes a completely new kind of many completely new kinds of mistakes, many new things that you have to look out for. And so that initial shock of, oh, the world is coming to an end passed, and then you go into, oh, but this could be useful, and we should start looking at things differently. And then it was, how could this be useful? And I guess for me, the moment of inspiration came when I told ChatGPT, simplify this sentence, turn this sentence into plain English, reduce the word count in this sentence. When I took it down to just one sentence, instead of trying to deal with these long texts, it came back with these really good edits. I was like, okay, well, if it can do that at a sentence, could we bring that into Word? Could we make that actually useful? Because it doing that in a window is a great novelty trick, but completely useless professionally, because the chance of you, Mark, as an editor, taking a sentence, copying it into ChatGPT, putting an instruction, it doing well on it, 50-50 chance, but when it does it well, and then copy pasting it back, there is zero chance of that being your new workflow in this AI world. But Draftsmith was an attempt to solve that, or is an attempt to solve that if we can take it down to just that sentence level, can it be useful?
Let's do this. We have several questions in the room already I'd like to get to, but I think it would help if you said you have a little bit of a demonstration. Maybe we just take a few minutes to take a look at Draftsmith.
Sounds good. Let me make it a little bit bigger on here. You can't see what I'm doing yet, but I can know that that's not going to be good on a shared screen. And then if I jump into it, and I did some sample errors in all the different places that it does. And if I run Draftsmith, so this is it, as I said, really deeply integrated into Word, and with these different functions that, broadly fall into kind of writing refinement tasks. Let's see. And it comes out, these just reflect the different ones at the top, same as the ribbon. And maybe we'll start with the first one, that fluency enhancer, because certain things here are much more useful for editing work than others. And this is one designed for working with multi-literate authors, experts working outside their own language. I am using, I guess we can call it an alpha version. It is certainly not a beta version at this point. It should not be nearly as slow as it is, but let's see how it does with this. So what we've told it is improve the English. We have some text from a multi-literate author. And let's see, this is the sentence it's been given. It's been told to improve the English. And how does it do? That's a really good edit to me. I like that. So
it's down in the, I was waiting for the text to change. It's in the side. Okay.
Oh, it's all good. You have to sort of look, you look across, and it's got the suggestion in this box. I've been using it a little while, right? So I'm not more familiar with it. But if I do it a bit slower, you can see this is the sentence that we've picked. This is its suggestion. We've chosen improve English. We could do a different one. We could tell it to simplify the sentence. But let's go back to the improve English, because I liked that edit. We could see the original side by side if we wanted, or we could show the changes. And it's making quite a few changes. So that is quite an extensive edit. This is not a subtle respect the author's voice kind of editing that it's doing. It's doing we're working with a multi-literate author, someone who is a true expert in this kind of academic subject, but someone who's working outside their foreign language, which, I'm sure there'll be people like that on the call. You've certainly worked with people like that. We're talking about people who have qualifications I will never have. People who understand subjects I will never understand, and they do it all in a second or third language, and I have one. So much respect to anyone who has this skill, but occasionally it can need a more extensive edit. And that's what it's suggesting here. And we could just click replace if we like it. And it puts that in. And we could have track changes on, and it will track all the changes. And we could go on to the next sentence. And we could choose a different sentence. We don't have to go one sentence at a time. We could choose, oh, well, here's a sentence that's really hard. Let's ask the AI to come up with something. That shouldn't. Ooh, really? No changes needed. Yeah, that changes are definitely needed. So I'm going to click refresh.
Live many troubles. Yeah.
As I said, dealing with an alpha version.
And the idea then is sentence by sentence. You wouldn't select a paragraph and have it do the whole thing.
You can select a paragraph. You could very much do that. The trouble I find is that if you do a whole paragraph at a time, it's really easy as an editor to make a mistake, to miss something, because as you said, it's an AI. It's not liking that one. Let's go on to the next one. It's an AI, and they will make mistakes. They will miss important nuance. They will occasionally produce absolute garbage. And you have to be very wary of that. And for me, I find if I do it as a full paragraph, you can see problems. Like it had a good edit there, and now it's changing to that. You can see some issues in it. Yeah, if I do a full paragraph, I have a tendency to miss things, and I won't pick up on the small sort of mistakes that AI tends to make. So I like to use it at the sentence level, but we could put a whole paragraph in, and we could tell it to redraft that paragraph, for instance. And it will make its mistake there, whatever it's making. But you can get the idea of how it's working. You can see why I said that for an editor, if AI is going to be useful in any context, it will be this one, completely integrated into MS Word in a way that you don't need to worry about, have I got the prompt right? Am I doing that? And with an answer that is also integrated into MS Word, where you can just pull things in. But yeah, it's kind of messing up here, as you can see. It shouldn't say no changes needed there.
Well, that first sentence was pretty cool.
At least, yeah, we saw a brief moment of it, right? If you will demonstrate with alpha software, that is what will happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really think it does have a lot of potential, but like anything that's nascent in terms of AI, it's not. AI is it's more of a concept than a tool. It's not. It's a thing that predicts what might fit somewhere, and it's getting better at it, but it's not really looking at the sentence in terms of the whole theme of it and changing it. It's doing it's sort of doing a predictive thing that can be very clever, but it's sometimes going to just be completely awry. It's not going to always score.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very much the way I would look at it.
Should we? So you've got a word count, trimmer, engagement tuner. Should we try another?
Yeah, let's do another one. So I set up a few samples. You can see, I think this is one of the most relevant ones from an editing perspective. Dictation fixer is probably not as much. Engagement tuner, probably not as much. That's more at the writing end. Word count trimmer, I do think we found certainly the feedback at CIEP was that it was very relevant, but the functionality it's not doing it. Hey, it's good. We can see it do some bad results because it's just not, the accuracy on this one is just not good enough yet. I think we will get there, keeping the functionality in, but my bet is some of these sentences, if we do a few, will not be good. So let's see. That's not bad, actually. It's missing some key terms, but you'd expect that. I think that's pretty, and it's, it's not lost 29. It's getting the word count reduction wrong there, I think. Oh no, wow, is it really losing 29 words? It says this is 47 words to begin with, and it brings it down to that. It is saving 29 words in that sentence, and it's doing it pretty well. That's it. When it's good, I bet people would look, it's got some nuance that's missed, and B, if we go on to the next one, I'll bet it does a really bad job next time. It's not quite good enough, this one. Yeah, that's pretty good too, actually, for knocking 10 words off. So when this is useful, it's quick. And these are both, the interesting thing about this is that I'll bet that's not true. There we go. But that's more the bug end than the AI going wrong. The interesting thing about these is that when these moments come up in editing work, working with a multiliterate author, needing to reduce word count, it's not every job, but when it comes up, this is time-consuming stuff. Full paragraphs from a multiliterate author can be really, someone called it the edits that make you sweat. And I love that as a concept of just like, hang on, trying to work to time here. And this is taking time, having to stare at this paragraph for so long, and the AI is so fast.
There is obviously the risk that it makes us lazy, that we stared at it so long and then we let the AI do it. And we say, oh yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it really does, speaking as an editor, now that I know this isn't designed for editors, but I can't help thinking of it as an editing tool. And speaking as an editor, it's scary to allow something to make changes that, we've got to be sure to check the work every time.
Absolutely. But that element, I think you mentioned of being tired there, that was one of the things that we got at CIEP, that they said, actually in the morning I've got this, but by the 7th or 8th hour in the day, editing is hard. And actually a little check on my work, a little check to make sure, a little shortcut here and there, really relevant.
We have a question. Does anybody have any, if you have a question about directly related to this demonstration, if there's something on the screen now that you're interested in or confused about?
Like that. Well, I'll show two things so that people can get one final feel for it, and then we can stop sharing the screen. So the plain English converter and the readability tuner. Let's do maybe the readability side rather than plain English. I think it's remarkably good at this. I think this comes up a little less on editing, but the simplify function is remarkably good, where I said like the word count one, that's not so great. Simplify, if you're having to do a kind of extensive edit, works remarkably well. Plain English, it's just a small portion of what's involved in plain English. For those that follow an excellent That Word Chat episode with Gail Spivak recently, talking about some of these issues. And the kind of thing that the program can do is very much just a small part of what Gail is speaking about. So it is not, you can't just plug a text into an AI and have it come back with plain English. Plain English is about so much more than that. But maybe 10% of the job might be thinking about wordiness, thinking about readability, thinking about vocabulary. And if we can make that 10% easier, well, then actually the harder bit, you have more time to spend on the harder bit. So it's fitting into the bigger picture. It is not the big picture on its own. Really important to be aware of that. So plain English, simplify, and then the ability to hit different reading levels. So always difficult if you're trying to target something to 6th grade reading level, 10th grade reading level. And this will not know, like Mark said, this is probabilistic, but it's a pretty good starting point if you want to hit these reading levels to see, well, what would that look like in, or let's do the readability one. What would some of these sentences, difficult sentences, look like at a kind of 13-year-old reading level? See how it does with that.
Show changes, show the original.
That's going to be very expensive there, isn't it? So really changing a lot, because it's a complex subject. And again, complex language may be relevant for plain English, but if you're trying to hit 13-year-old reading level, you really want to bring those down. So different tasks, different ways of looking at problems. Should I stop sharing there? Or is there anything that anyone said in the chat that we need to see in the app?
I don't think so. I think we do have several questions. So and we love our questions. So Sarani, who's up first?
Yes, hi. Catherine has a great question from the chat. Catherine, if you're ready.
Yes, thanks so much. Thanks. This is fascinating, Daniel. I appreciate it. How is this AI taught? Where is it getting its information or knowledge?
So this is just using GPT 3.5. Essentially the same thing that ChatGPT is using without that chat back and forth. So all of it is that pre-trained, ready to go model.
And ChatGTP is partly owned by Microsoft, as I understand, and is integrated into some Microsoft products already.
That's right. So that's a really important point. Before I'm sure someone will ask and pick up on that. So it's using GPT 3.5, but it's using Microsoft's version. It's using what's called the Azure OpenAI service. And confusingly, because it's using the Microsoft one, no data is going to OpenAI. So this is not being used to train anything. Nothing that you send is ever used to train any models anywhere. Nothing's visible anywhere. It all gets deleted very quickly. So it's about as safe, ethical, responsible as I think you can do with these sorts of technologies.
That's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm not sure I would have thought to ask it, but I read recently that about 75% of major companies have said, no, we're not doing artificial intelligence, machine learning of this nature, because when you put things into it, it becomes part of that training model. So there are cases where people inadvertently put up company secrets that end up as part of this broader thing. So that's an excellent point. That's good to know. Yeah. And I think we have, let's see what we have in terms of questions. We'll try to knock some of these out because I know there are several.
Yes, Karen had a great question about copyright. Karen, are you able to come on mic?
Hi. My question is related to copyright and if considerations have been given to that in the creation of the software.
So it's a really good question. And it's very hard to be definitive in an answer. But I don't think there's a major copyright concern because what you're doing ultimately is paraphrasing. You're taking an original text from an author and you're suggesting alternative wording. It is theoretically possible that the AI could come up with something that is, the same as a text elsewhere, but only in the same way that a human being could do exactly that. It's not generating something from scratch. It is technically generative AI. If you need to fill in a declaration of use, it absolutely counts as generative AI, but it's not really generating. It's really taking an existing thing and working upon it, paraphrasing, improving. It's not doing that element of write me a blog article about this, write me something about that, where it just repeats something based on nothing. It's going to give its answers based on what you feed it. You feed it a sentence, it gives it a slightly improved sentence.
Yeah, there have been lawsuits as people say to ChatGPT, hard to say. What are you drinking there?
I went with the Glen Torkos. I wasn't sure today whether we were doing that whiskey chat or that word chat. I got very confused. They both have the same initials. Right. It's a slightly obscure. Where is it? It's Speyside, and it's non-peated, and it's from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, which like these individual barrels. Lots of fun.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, excellent. Okay. And I went with the Glenfiddich.
Nice. Same area.
Solera 15, which is a recent gift from my son-in-law. So anyway, so we are drinking on the job just a little bit.
It turned 5 o'clock. I mean, I was drinking tea up until then.
Right. And I do want to talk to you about tea. So where was I? Oh, we were talking about there have been lawsuits about, because it has ChatGPT will spit back clearly, and I shouldn't say this as from a legal definition, but pretty obvious that it uses copyrighted work, and it will sometimes return things that it probably shouldn't because it's copyrighted stuff. Now, the artificial intelligence company will argue that, well, we're just doing what any human would do, going to the library, reading everything, and then developing something based on that. You're always And so this can't be copyrightable because it's not, not original. So it's a very interesting case. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. But as you say, this is mostly using, even though it is using that sort of that copyrighted knowledge base, perhaps, it's focused on the work in front of it.
It's a much simpler use case. We will have because it does need to be declared for some journals and things that that generative AI is used. We have sort of a recommended declaration, even, which is important to always say if you're editing for a journal. Yes, it's used, but it's only used in this limited way of paraphrasing.
And I think we have another question from Karen, right?
So we have another question from Karen about changes made to storage. Karen, are you able to come on again?
Oh, hi.
Hi
Sorry
again.
about that. So my question, I think, was already answered in that I was curious whether the changes that were made were stored like perhaps in the user software, or if it was sent back to a central database. And I think that was answered, but if you have anything more to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I can run you through it. So essentially it starts on the first thing is your whole document is never sent. The only data that is sent is the data that you select, that sentence that you're in. So if lots of people will be worried about confidentiality, could have medical documents, anything like that. It's only sending the data that you select. The data that you select goes up to the server, then it goes to the Microsoft Azure OpenAI service, goes back to the server, goes back to your computer. It is deleted basically immediately from ours. It can take a little bit longer to be deleted from Microsoft Azure. They've got sort of verifications and things in place, quality control things in place that can mean it takes a little longer to be deleted there. But in both cases, like it's absolutely deleted. We're not storing anything. We're not going to use that to train some other model or anything like that. It's just on the server and then off the server.
Let's do one more question, and then I'm going to ask you about tea and coffee.
Yes, Mike Morin had a good question about custom style guides. Mike, are you able to come on?
Giving you guys a bourbon drink in a room full of Scotch people, so I'm a little nervous.
We're fine. We're good with that.
So I'm interested in, and you may have come at this, but for my use case, what I'm looking to do is preferably import a custom style guide and have it apply that. There are many out there, Writer and Grammarly, where you can create an exception list at a time. Use this word, not that word, which is a little kludgy. I'm looking to import a style guide and even apply like an AP style subscription to a document and have it learn off the changes I'm making. So it have to be stored somewhere so that the AI is actually learning. That seems to me the key advantage in using an AI is it learns from what the changes we make.
That's really interesting. So we haven't built anything like that into Draftsmith yet. Certainly, like you, we can see the kind of potential there in the longer term. We're starting from the principle that PerfectIt covers that. Or it doesn't cover all of what you just said, let's be clear, there's no AI involved. But PerfectIt's still very much our recommendation for enforcing a style guide. We don't have the AP style, but we do have the Chicago Manual of Style, and we do have several other more public domain ones. And you can build in your own preferences. I can see Colleen saying something like, I can't do both, so I'll have to assume that she's making fun of me in some way, shape, or form, which is probably a pretty good bet.
It's very dangerous to look at the chat.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. It flashes up. I haven't got that under control. I apologize. But yes, we use PerfectIt for those things. So PerfectIt, as I said at the start, the advantage is that it's not AI. So you can build in exactly those rules on exactly those terms, and you can build in, do find this one, do not find this one, and you can build exceptions around it. You can build, do not find it if it comes before this word, do not find it if it's after this term. And you just build those in one by one, which sounds long. It sounds like, oh, I don't want to do that. It'd be better to have an AI do it. But my bet is that the same things keep coming up in your work. That actually, if in an hour of building in, or even 20 minutes of building in the most common things that you want it to fix, you get an enormous benefit in terms of speed. I'm afraid that's only on the Windows edition of PerfectIt. We don't have that on the Mac one. Longer term, I think what you're saying is really interesting, that could these be built into an AI? Could AI do it better? My experience of that so far is it just does not get what a style manual is at this stage. That you tell it, do this thing in Chicago manual style, do this thing in AP style, and it is lost. It doesn't have, and there's so much subtlety to those. There's so much an element of it depends that I don't see that now. I don't see that soon. And I really like the non-AI way of enforcing it is surprisingly effective. And it's effective because it doesn't try to do all of it. It leaves so much up to the editor, which is the right way to enforce a style manual, I think.
And an interesting point with that is that the AP style book and the Chicago Manual of Style are both paid sites. So ChatGPT, I always think I'm saying it wrong. ChatGPT, when it trolls the internet, it's not going to those sites. And it occurred to me, I wondered whether it was smart enough to because of everything else that's been written about AP style and Chicago style out there, maybe it could figure it out. Maybe it's smart enough. And I asked ChatGPT about an AP style book question. I said, what are the top things to know about AP style? I think it was the 5 top things. And the first one, I don't remember. It made sense. It was definitely AP style. The second one, it said always use a serial comma, which we know is the opposite of what AP style suggests. And then it said something about always capitalize proper nouns and proper adjectives. And at that point, I just threw up my hand. So it was clearly making stuff up for me. Now, I don't want to be one of these people who just says, oh, it's just junk. It does everything wrong, because it does do some things I've queried and asked it to do that make sense. It does a very nice job of helping me think through things. I don't use it too much, but when I have used it, I've been happy with it. But yes, it's not going to give you a style guide. But interesting question. Maybe one day we will build artificial intelligence that is an AP style or a Chicago style whiz, or preferably both. Right? So, what Colleen was talking about was Colleen is product manager of the AP Style Guide, and she's been on the show before, and we're happy to have her giving us the AP style, because somebody asked about the distinction between whiskey, the different spelling of whiskey, and bourbon. What is bourbon? What is Scotch? Does it have to come from Bourbon County, Kentucky, or is it ingredients? So that's the side discussion. But we'll share the chat with you.
I want to be in the chat.
I know, of course you do. We'll share the chat with you after. But let's talk about something really important. So I was in the UK. I was in Scotland and Ireland. So I was in the British Isles in the spring. And the tea, it was so refreshing to get a good cup of tea, because I don't know what it is, but you go to a restaurant here, they bring you a little bit of hot water that's been sitting out after boiling, and then they bring you a box, and you have to look through for the black tea, which often is just these herbal teas, which aren't really tea. They do it so well over there in Ireland and Scotland. But I couldn't get a good cup of coffee. And you've lived in New York. I'm a bit of a coffee snob. I do the pour over. I do the AeroPress. Finding that you go to Starbucks, it's an Americano. So are you a coffee drinker?
I'm going to be kicked off this call again twice over. It wasn't writing and editing. I was allowed to continue. But not only am I not a coffee drinker, I was drinking herbal tea, Mark.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
in my defense, it's late. I did have a really nice black tea.
Oh, of course.
And I will even defend I'll even defend the US, and I'll be allowed back on this call, but I'll be banned from this country if I defend tea culture in the US publicly. I'm getting a lot of trouble for this. But genuinely, I learned to love tea in New York, and I learned because of the Harney and Sons shop, where they're so friendly. In the UK, one is expected to know these things about tea, but I didn't. And you go into Harney and Sons, and they let you sample they put samples on the counter, and then they let you pick a sample of anything in the shop. So I was like, okay, I'll taste that. And then they're really nice and explain it to you. Well, that's a great experience on its own. And I just learned, I was like, oh, well, actually, I thought I didn't like that, but they found one that I did. And then I started, buying that. And once someone sells it like that, well, I'm taking it home. And then I very, very quickly got into it that way. So yeah, I'm half British, half American, and I learned to love tea in New York. I'm weird.
Well, and I shouldn't say that you can't get a good cup of tea in America, because there are places, and probably in New York they do a little bit better job than in the Midwest in general. But you can't get a good cup of coffee over there. I walked 3/4 of a mile in the morning in Dublin to a place that did pour over coffee to get a good cup of coffee in the morning while I was there. Sorry, completely off track. 20 people have left the chat
love that
already.
I can see a little tiny bit into the chat, and then people have concluded that Japan got it all. Tea, whiskey.
Japan. I've never been. Okay, so that's.
I don't know what their coffee's like, but I can just assume that probably done well.
Yeah, I have had Japanese whiskey, and it's enjoyed it. So what is so this is, I don't remember if I got an answer to the question of when do you think this will be rolling out.
Really soon. So we actually, with the alpha version, sort of got us into the Microsoft Store. I do have a link at the end to share for anyone who'd like to be part of the beta trial. It's going to come up really quickly. We have a place on our website where you can put your email in, and we'll give you probably 2 or 3 weeks of just completely unrestricted access. Use as much as you like. Give us feedback, please. But yeah, no, a few weeks we'll be into beta trial, few weeks more, or maybe a couple of months before it actually gets wider release. It's always the case with anything language related. Turns out, this is going to shock everyone on this call, turns out the English language really difficult, really nuanced, so many more things. And if not the language itself, documents. So the place that we found that Draftsmith really adds a lot of value compared to other tools is we spent a lot of time thinking about documents are much more than text. If you have URLs, if you have footnotes, if you have track changes, if you have formatting, those things are all crucial. And if the AI accidentally overwrites something it shouldn't, an editor, an author, whoever it is just suddenly the tool is useless. So we've tried to build in, and it's difficult. We can't build in everything, but we tried to build in as many protections as we can to make sure that all the variety that you see in a document, it's not overwriting. And we'll continue to improve on that, because there are so many different kinds of documents and so many different kinds of editing and so many different things that can be there other than just text. But that element of documents being much more than text it will slow things down, I'm sure.
So what have you looked ahead? I'm sure you've been very focused on the tools, the tool that is at hand and is available to you. But of course, we have ChatGPT-4 now, and at some point, I assume we'll have ChatGPT-5, which is trained on much more complex language. Do you see Draftsmith continue to evolve then with that?
Yeah.
And what?
I mean, I think the category that we set about to build with this is a really significant one. That notion that, yes, all these people are doing first drafts, and there's so many software tools and ChatGPT, et cetera. And there's so many tools for copy edits, final stages of production, including PerfectIt. But that bit in between, what are all the things in between that can be made to go faster? Not the AI doing it for you, but where AI could help in subtle ways. And that's where I'd love, you offered at the start that maybe we could use the chat for suggestions. I would love to have people's suggestions on that. Whether, as Mark says, like maybe AI can't do it today, but what are the instructions that we could ask it to do? What are the problems that we could reasonably solve with, whether it's GPT-4, 5, whatever order they're bringing things out in? what would be helpful as things that it could help on, and as ideas. Now, we didn't look into this part of the software, but we built in turn a passive sentence to an active one. We built in break up this long sentence into multiple sentences. And if there are other individual things like that that take a bit of time, that take a bit of thought, that actually getting a suggestion on would be helpful, especially if you've been editing for 6-7 hours and could use, you know, a sidekick to help. We'd love to hear about those ones. Little ways it can help is, I think, where the AI fits in from the editor's perspective.
So PerfectIt is one thing it does well is it looks for inconsistency in a document, in an entire document. Is that something that I assume the draftsmith, because you're going sentence by sentence, it wouldn't, and this gets to Mike's question, sort of, you know, it won't remember that you want something a certain way. Like one theory that I could put in the one query I could put in the chat is consistency in bullets. So you do a bullet one way at one point, and then later on you do a bullet in a different way, or headings vary from heading to heading, which is something that PerfectIt will flag and say, did you want to do it this way or that way? Is there a artificial intelligence method of doing that?
I don't think from an editor's perspective there is, or necessarily there ever will be. Artificial intelligence is always going to be that much slower. PerfectIt's really fast at that, right? The amazing, I'm honored, delighted every time I hear someone say something like, I use PerfectIt every day. It just absolutely gets me right there, because I never intended, when I developed this thing, I had no idea it would help so many people and affect so many people that way. So to hear people say, I use this every day, it's so wonderful for me to hear. And people do, you know, if you're every day, so people have come up to me and said, this changed my life. And I go, this can't change your life. It's doing hyphenation. But actually, if what you're doing every day is these very small details, and suddenly you have the headspace to work on much bigger, more important editorial questions. I do get why people have given me that amazing level of feedback. PerfectIt's so good at that because it can scan a document so quickly. It is, to do its hyphenation check, it is taking in every single phrase in the document. It's comparing it to every hyphenated one to every non-hyphenated one. It's doing a whole bunch of, it's got layers of checks in between to look at the layers of pattern matching to look at what could come up there. And that's not what AI is good at. AI takes longer. If you give it an entire document, you have to go through with a lot of time. It can do it, but it leads this whole level of you know, is it right, is it wrong? Whereas PerfectIt comes from, as we said at the top, like completely different philosophy, a philosophy of people are really fast at this if you give them the short choice. So I don't see a lot of overlap there. I don't see AI as being a good solution for bullet checks or title capitalization. I'm sure that people are using it that way. I'm sure that people are uploading documents and sending things to ChatGPT, but so hard to see the changes it makes. For me, that goes back to that very first point of, nah, this AI can't be that useful. I think the kind of way and it turns out that's wrong, but the kind of way it's useful is in novel, unexpected ways, like, oh, let's break down this task. Let's have it do this small thing, that small thing, because then it turns out to be remarkably useful.
One more question from the room, and I'll ask it because Karen has come on twice, and it's a quick question. But does the tool distinguish, or can this tool distinguish between British, Canadian, American English?
We're trying to build in that level of respect, that level of, you know, can it see what's going on in the document and not alter that? Because that's really significant. It's by default, obviously, GPT is just not that respectful of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I think we have got that, but I'm not sure. It's one of those things we've had to work quite hard on. I don't know that it's working 100% yet. But great question, and absolutely right.
Right.
Really truly.
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like that's a problem for. I mean, this is the thing. You're not building a tool that is completely self-contained. You're building a tool that works with this other tool, and you're dependent on that other tool to do the right thing.
That's right. But that's what makes it fun and interesting. It's working with two others. It's working with Word at one end and GPT at the other end. And if we can provide a useful bridge, yes, we have to take account of all these things. But if it was easy, it wouldn't be fun.
Really quick, people are always asking about the Mac versus Windows versions of PerfectIt, and is there anything coming on that? And what else? What are you working on? Do you have a product that's coming out in 6 months that you want to tease now?
Oh, always. Come on, give me a chance to promote it. If I've got 2 minutes, I'll use it. We have a PowerPoint version coming really soon. I mean, actually, it's right. Live now if you're in it, but we haven't really promoted it properly yet. We're really excited about PerfectIt for PowerPoint. It means that we can have the Chicago Manual of Style being enforced in slides. So, think about the high stakes and the how big writing is in PowerPoint. If you think a typo jumps out at you in a Word document of several thousand words, think small slide. So hitting that level of consistency in PowerPoint is really exciting, helpful for sort of educational materials, lots of healthcare infographics, that kind of thing. A lot of our attention has obviously been on Draftsmith, but you also asked about Mac, and we had a really awful outage recently, like impossibly bad, 7 days. The product was down. So, if anyone was on the call was dealt with that, we are really sorry. We have sent around an apology to everyone. We made a donation of all sort of the revenue that was coming in that time. We put it to UNHCR in Ukraine because you can't have a product down for 7 days. It's just not acceptable. And we're really sorry about that. But it also led us to a lot of thinking, which was, hang on, if this product is doing this, we are far from right. And we made promises in 2018 that we are still far from living up to. And so we wanted to sort of be very honest. We've written a summary of everything that went wrong, what we're doing about it, and just being clear that the solution for that is not coming soon. That actually to solve all of those problems takes an enormous amount of work. It takes a big rewrite. And what we don't want is someone renewing their subscription on the basis that it's going to be 6 months. If someone's waiting for an improvement, it's probably years, not months. And we'd much rather that they stay on our mailing list. We are absolutely committed to this product. We are going to get there, but please don't renew and give us money for something that we're not going to hit soon. Stay on the mailing list. When we get it, we will let you know, because we will get there eventually. It's just a tough one. And we've outlined in that article why.
Do you have a marketing plan for the rollout of the new? I mean, how are we going to hear about it when it's ready? Probably everybody in the room is going to sign up for the beta.
Yeah. So I mean, if we can share that the link in the chat, and then we will announce it. We are not a big company, and there are all these big companies in the space who are able to broadcast and make a big deal about when they launch a product. We're not like that. We will have one advantage when we launch a product, which is our audience. All the people that come across PerfectIt, fantastic community that are editors. And so we will absolutely let people know and hope that people share it and hope people like it, because that's what's made us, the editing community, and probably we'll be relying on them again, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, as it always is. Maybe I'll see you next week at the ACES virtual conference. I'll try to make your session. Next month we have another. So some people have been confused because we're usually the first Tuesday of the month, but we got sort of delayed a little bit. Next month we're on the 10th, so we're getting a little bit closer to the first Tuesday of the month. But next month October 10th, and our guest is Megan Rosenblum, who's a medical librarian and author of Dark Archives: A Librarian's Investigation into the Science and History of Books Bound in Human Skin. Halloween month, so we're looking forward to that. Should be fun. So come back October 10th next month, and we'll do another show. And thank you all for all the questions. They've been great. And thank you for Daniel. And
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark. It's such a pleasure to be here. Really appreciate everyone showing up.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Yes, thanks, everyone.
Oops. See, this when Heather's not here, I grabbed the wrong slide. Hang on. I'll try this again. Right, one more try.